Hi everyone, I'm Jane. This is my YouTube channel, Little Lips Knitting. So welcome or welcome back if you've been here before. And today I'm going to talk about everything that I didn't knit in 2024. So in my last video, if you saw it, it was everything that I did knit in 2024. But to be more precise, it was everything that I finished. I didn't talk about my works in progress. So even though I knitted a lot, I didn't actually have that many finished objects to show. So this episode, I'm going to talk about those works in progress. And I'm also going to talk about the things that I wanted to make, but I didn't get around to. So I'm going to split it into two parts. There'll be everything that I didn't finish and everything that I didn't knit. So the projects that I wanted to make and didn't. And that will kind of lead me on to my 2025 knitting plans. I'll just start by mentioning what I'm wearing. I didn't actually make this year. I made this last year and it was my birthday project last year. So I got a gift card for a knitting shop for my birthday and I got the wool to make this. This is the Abbey sweater. It's by Sandnes Garn and it's from one of their pattern booklets. So it's from this pattern booklet. It's called DIY and it's got a number on it too, 2302. So this is from 2023, I guess. And yeah, it's got really nice patterns in here. I definitely want to make some more patterns from this book. But yeah, this is the Abbey sweater. It uses one strand of Sandnes Garn Sunday held together with a strand of mohair. I used a mix of mohair for this one. I used Tynn Silk Mohair for the white stripe and I used Filcolana Tilia for the black stripe, just because the black of the Tynn Silk Mohair was sold out when I bought it. So I just mixed them. But I used Sandnes Garn Sunday for the merino. So I really love this jumper. I think it's got a really interesting construction. You cast on the stitches for the back panel and you kind of knit in short rows and then knit to about here. So rather than like a drop shoulder sweater where you just knit the entire armhole, you knit just like a couple of inches down and then you pick up stitches for the sleeves and join it all in the round and then start to knit like raglan increases. It's really interesting construction, and I think with the stripes as well it creates like a cool effect where you go from having the lines meeting here and then they all join together. So yeah, I really like this jumper. It was one of those ones when I saw the picture on Instagram, I just really fell in love with it, so I didn't want to change anything about it. I kept all of the colours more or less the same. For the black, you hold together, I think it's like a dark grey blue merino. I can't remember the exact colour code. I've long since lost all the labels, but it was like a really dark greyish blue and a black mohair, which I really like because it's not as intense as just being completely black, but in certain lights it looks more navy, in certain lights it looks black. So I really like it. It's a really nice colour. And for the white, I think it was the shade Almond I used, perhaps. I think I used two different shades again. I used, I think, Almond for the merino and it might have been Kit for the mohair. So again, it's I think it just creates like a more interesting colour when you mix two slightly similar shades together. I really like it. This jumper is designed to be really oversized. So I made the smallest size, which I would just find it in the book. So the smallest size is the extra small and it has a bust measurement of 135 centimetres. And that's recommended with it doesn't actually say. Most patterns that I make, they will give you the finished garment measurements, but then they'll also say like what's the recommended positive or negative ease, so you can kind of match it up to your own measurements. But this one doesn't really say, it just says oversized. But anyway, it's an extra small and it's 135 centimetres. So that's going to be like at least 40 or 50 centimetres of positive ease, which is quite a lot. Depending on how you define extra small, I would usually say extra small would be like a 85 centimetre bust, maybe 75. Sometimes it depends on the designer and how they size their garments. I usually make a small, but it really just depends like how much positive ease there is. I just kind of look at the finished measurements and work it out from there. But even with 135 centimetres, I know that's too much positive ease for what I'm normally comfortable with. So I stopped doing the raglan increases a little bit sooner. It just means that it brings where the sleeve and the body are split up a little bit as well. So otherwise it would have been like much further down. And then you have the issue that when you like lift your arms up, the whole jumper comes up. And yeah, I didn't really want that. So I stopped the raglan increases a little bit sooner. And I also did some decreases on the body. Not that many. I think I did like 3 or 4, and I just tried to space them out evenly along the stripes. Another change that I made to this one is, I'll just like stand up so you can see it a bit better. But I knit an extra stripe on the body. You're supposed to start the ribbing really high up, and it's also supposed to be a split hem. And I did do a split hem originally, and this was why I did the extra stripe, was because I didn't want it to be like really gappy at the side. I didn't want that. I wanted it to be, I wanted a jumper to keep me warm. So I extended the body slightly and knit the ribbing in, it's like half twisted rib, but because you knit it flat, you're kind of alternating. You twist the knit stitches on the right side and you twist the purl stitches on the wrong side to make the twisted rib. I finished the jumper, and in the end I just decided like I had to seam it up at the side. I didn't really like having the big massive gap here, but now I really love it. I'm really happy with it. I'm really happy with the modifications that I made. I definitely want to knit more stripes because I wear stripes a lot anyway. I just find them really easy to wear, and yeah, I really love this jumper, and it's really soft as well. It's knit on 3.5mm needles, so it's a bit more dense fabric than you would usually make with the combination of yarns. Normally I would knit these yarns together on a 4mm or even 4.5mm, but this time it's 3.5, so I think it's like a gauge of 23 stitches for 10 centimeters. But it's so soft, it's so warm and snuggly. I really love it. So that's that one. Now I'm going to start talking about my works in progress from last year. I'm going to start with the one that's the most close to being finished, and that is just here. So I've actually knit this jumper twice now, because I did finish it back in maybe spring or summertime. This was my birthday project from this year. So again, I got a gift card for my birthday, so I treated myself to this yarn. Originally, I made this sweater number 25 by My Favourite Things Knitwear. So I'll show you the jumper now. So I used exactly the same yarn combination as the original sample by My Favourite Things Knitwear. It uses 3 yarns held together. They're all by Isager, and it uses 1 strand of their Isager Tweed, which is a 4-ply, and 1 strand of their Alpaca 2, which is also a 4-ply, slightly lighter weight, and it uses 1 strand of their Silk Mohair. Altogether, it's quite an expensive project if you use all of those yarns. I think it was like well over £100 for all of these yarns together. I wouldn't normally spend that much on a project, but it was my birthday project, so I had a gift card to use, and that helped. I had originally planned on just using like the tweed and the mohair, and then using a different 4-ply instead of the Alpaca 2. But when I swatched it, I didn't really like how it looked. I really loved the colour of the original sample, so I just ended up getting all the exact same yarns. And I'm really glad I did, because it is beautiful. Like I love the texture that you get with having the tweed in there, but I also love all the different flecks of colour and holding a slightly different shade with it, you can just create really interesting colours and textures, which I really love. So as I said, this started as a sweater number 25 and it's not anymore. I finished making it and I cast it off and everything. I blocked it. I'd worn it a couple of times, but I just really didn't like the fit. It's another really oversized jumper. I can't remember exactly how oversized it's supposed to be, but I actually knit it on a 5mm needle, whereas the pattern recommends a 6mm needle. So I swatched with a 6mm needle first, which is the recommended size, and I just really didn't like the fabric that it produced. It was really like very gappy, and I didn't think that it would keep me warm enough. I thought like the wind is just going to blow right through it and I'm going to be miserable. So I went down to a 5.5, didn't really like that either. Went down to a 5. I thought, okay, this is nicer this time, this works. I didn't make any changes to the pattern, I don't think. So I just knitted it as is suggested, but just using a smaller needle size, and then hoping that that would solve the problem of it being too oversized by sizing down. It was a lot less oversized than it was designed to be, but I didn't really like it. I don't like when my sleeves are like really wide and I feel like they just flap about and I can't do anything. Like you can't cook, you can't, I don't know. They just get in the way. Even when you're knitting, they kind of get in the way, and I don't like that. And as I mentioned before with my Abbey sweater, I don't like it when the armpits like come down too low either, and your elbows like almost get lost in there. I'm not a fan of it. It's not for me. It's not a criticism of the pattern, because that's how the pattern is designed and that's clearly what the designer wanted. So that's fine. Lots of people like that look. It's not something that I feel comfortable wearing. So I made a decision to unravel it all and start again and just like choose a completely different pattern. I'm really glad that I did. Like, I think, as I mentioned before, like the yarn was expensive. It was a treat. It's not something that I would usually spend so much on. So I didn't want to knit something that I wasn't completely happy with. Like, there's no point. So I unraveled it all and I decided to make the Sycamore sweater by PetiteKnit. This is another one that I've made before and I unraveled because I didn't like the yarn that I used, but I really liked the way that it fit. Like, it's quite, well, I'll show you. So it's got this saddle shoulder construction where you increase the body, and then when you get to the top of the sleeves, you start increasing the sleeves, and then once you get about here, you increase the sleeves and the body, so like a raglan, and then you split the sleeves and the body. And I really like this construction. It just creates like a really well fitted garment. When I knitted it before as well, I did really like how it fitted. It wasn't too oversized, it just felt really comfortable. The original pattern for the Sycamore sweater, if you've seen it before, it's got like stripes, but they're kind of uneven, wobbly stripes that she uses Japanese short rows to make. I've never actually made the pattern using those stripes. I just kind of skip those bits out. It is easy enough to do, but if you're a beginner, I wouldn't suggest using this pattern. And even without doing the Japanese short rows and the stripes, there's a lot of instructions and you've got to kind of jump to the part where it's relevant to you, and you've got to do a bit of the calculations yourself to figure out like, okay, how many increases have I missed in this bit that I've just skipped out, because she kind of takes you line for line how to do each row. So it's not the easiest to adapt, but I think if you're experienced enough, it is fairly easy. But if you're a complete beginner, I wouldn't recommend starting with this one. I would say choose something like the Terrazzo sweater by PetiteKnit, which is a really similar construction, but it's just designed to be knit in a plain colour. As you can see, I'm so close to finishing this one. I'm doing the collar right now. This is going to be a folded collar. I do still need to cast off the body. I've just put it onto one of these try-on cords cables. And this is so that I can wash it and block it and then see if it needs to be any longer. I was going to do the same for the sleeves as well, but I didn't have enough cables. Hopefully they're going to be long enough. So this will probably be my first finished object of 2025, I hope. I should say as well, this yarn combination is so soft, it's so luxurious. I enjoyed knitting this jumper so much. Like, it was one of those where when I finished it, I was kind of sad that it was finished, because I just really loved knitting the yarn. It was such a pleasure to knit, which maybe that's part of the reason why I wanted to knit it again. So it was so good, I knit it twice. Okay, the next project I'm going to talk about is actually an unfinished project from 2023. So I decided at the end of November / beginning of December 2023, I was going to try and knit my partner a sweater for Christmas. As you can probably tell, that did not happen because I also decided that month that I was going to knit smaller things for like 3 other people. Yeah, I gave myself too much work, and in the end I decided to focus on the smaller things which I could actually finish in time and then have presents for 3 people rather than like one really big jumper for one person. I also had other things for him. So in the end, I wrapped up the wool and gave it to him and told him, I've started making you a jumper and I'm going to hopefully finish it soon. I haven't really made any progress on this at all this year. Like, I worked on it a little bit at the beginning of the year, but then I just got sidetracked by other things that I wanted to do. But I think as well, there's a reason that I didn't do any more. There's sometimes when I get to a point in a project where I think either like this isn't going to fit right, it's either too small or too big, and then I end up just putting it off for ages. And that's basically what happened with this. So I will show you what I've got so far. The pattern is the Moby sweater by PetiteKnit. So this is how much I've done. I have started doing one sleeve. I've got quite far with this sleeve actually. I didn't realize I'd done so much. And I did block the body because I wanted to try it on him so far to see if it was going to fit. I'll start with the yarn because that's basically where the issue is. For this one, I'm using Woolyknit 4-ply British wool. So they've got 2 4-plies. One is a merino, one is just a wool. This is just the wool. And I'm holding it double. Yeah, I really like it. It's really nice. It's a really nice colour. I don't think it shows up very well, but it's got little flecks of like light blue. It's kind of like a denim-y blue, so it's a lot more interesting than just being like a solid navy. But I think the gauge is a little bit on the small side. So I'm kind of in 2 minds, like, do I keep going with it and, you know, risk it being a little bit tight, or do I just rip it back? What I'm thinking of doing is getting like a lace weight alpaca to hold with it, and I think that would work really well. It would help to make it just a bit thicker, and it would also make it a bit softer as well, because this British wool, it is lovely. It could be a bit scratchy, it might be a bit coarse. So I think, yeah, getting a lace weight alpaca would, you know, solve both of those problems, make it a bit softer and also hopefully make it fit better. As I've always said, like, I think too big is always better than too small, especially when you're knitting for other people. So that's that one so far. I do really want to finish it. I love this pattern. I want to knit one for myself. I want to knit the baby version. I just think it's a really like nice, like staple cable knit, but there's not actually that many cables in it. There's these 2 at the side, then you've got moss stitch, and then in the middle you've got mock cables. So there's not actually a lot of cabling like with a cable needle that you need to do. It's quicker to knit than like all over a cable jumper. Okay, so that's that one. As I say, that's been ongoing since last Christmas. Following on from that, I do have another jumper that I started making for my partner and also haven't finished. So I'll show you that one too. It's kind of funny because the Moby sweater is obviously top down. This next one I'm making is bottom up. So like I was telling some friends about it, how I've started making in 2 jumpers, but they're both like half finished. And they were like, oh, maybe you can just like combine the two and, you know, make like a Frankenstein jumper. So this one is, I started making this as part of a knit along, hosted by Handmade by Florence. I feel like I mention her a lot. I should point out that I don't know her personally. I just really, I really like her podcast, and I really like her patterns as well. So, oh dear, I think I've dropped some stitches. Okay, I had to drop some stitches, but I've picked them all back up again. So yeah, as I say, it was part of a knit along. The idea is everybody chooses one of the Norwegian Olympic jumpers to make. Every time there's like Olympics or the Winter Olympics, there's a different official jumper, and it's by Dala of Norway. And this one is the Lillehammer 1994 jumper. So this is as far as I've got so far. So the yarn that I'm using for this one, I'm using a mix of drops Karisma and drops Lima for the black and the white. I think it's the Karisma in anthracite grey and drops Lima in like off-white. And there's around the edges, there's some more colour details as well. It's only around like the bottom edge, I think the sleeve cuffs, and I think around the shoulders as well that you use these colours. I'm just using some random leftover yarn from my stash. I think the red is Peer Gynt, the blue is like a 4-ply merino that I'm holding double, and the yellow is just some random baby alpaca. So yeah, it is fun to knit. This is another one that I had started and I had to rip back and start again. That seems to be a recurring theme here, and I think it's why like I've not got further in it. When I started it back in summer, I was like really motivated to knit it, and I got about this far up. So a bit of background for this pattern. The original pattern is in Norwegian, but there's also an English translation of the pattern. Now I have both of these, but they are different. So firstly, like the gauge is different and the construction is slightly different as well. I can't remember the exact details because it's been a while since I worked on this one. But for one of them, you increase some stitches after you do the ribbing at the end, and in the other one you don't. And as I said before, the gauge is different. So the Norwegian pattern has a 22 stitch gauge and the English pattern has a 24 stitch gauge. That is quite a big difference. I did a gauge swatch and I thought I'll just see which one I get closer to and I'll follow that pattern, because you can kind of like blend them together. It's mostly chart based, so it's not a huge issue if you don't understand Norwegian. At least I'm hoping that's the case anyway. I think when it comes to like steeking, I'm going to need a bit more detail there. But as long as you know like how many to cast on and then kind of when to follow the charts, you can kind of figure it out. So as I say, I did a gauge swatch and I got 24 stitches. So I thought, okay, great, I'll just do the English pattern. And I got about this far up and it was looking huge. So I measured it and I measured the gauge and my gauge was like 22 stitches. So I mentioned this in my last video as well, like the same thing happened. I don't know whether this is just like a phenomenon that happens when I'm making colour work or if it's something that happens all the time, where my gauge swatches I knit tighter than the actual garment. But it's really annoying. So I had to decide, do I want to just keep going knowing that it's going to be really big, or should I just rip back and start again? And in the end, yeah, I decided to rip back and start again because it was going to be quite a bit bigger, which is potentially fine. Like, as I said before, it's better to be too big than too small. But it was also going to use so much more yarn. It was going to take longer to knit because I had more stitches on the needles. And it was going to be a much heavier jumper as well. And I thought the time that I've spent knitting this, I might end up saving that time by like having fewer stitches on the needles. So yeah, I've started again. And I think at this point, the motif changes and there's like some horses and knights on the front. I think it's supposed to be like Thor and Odin and like figures from Norse mythology. So I'm getting towards that point now. So I'm going to have to measure it, and I'm going to have to look at my row gauge now to figure out if I need to start doing the motif, because when I start doing the motif, it's going to determine how long the jumper is going to be. And because it's knit bottom up, I can't just like rip the cast on edge back and knit it longer if I need to. So I really need to get it right. And I would rather it be too long than too short. Like, I don't think he's going to want a cropped jumper. I think he'd rather have an oversized jumper. I'm going to have to do a bit of like a few calculations there to figure out where I need to start knitting like the character motif. And then I'm going to have to steek as well, and that's another new thing for me. I've never done a steek before, so it's kind of exciting, kind of scary, but I would really like to finish this one because I think it will be really cool. I don't think it will be ready to wear this winter. I think this is going to be something I'm working on over the next couple of months maybe. Okay, so the next work in progress, another jumper. I'm not very good at finishing jumpers, as you can see. And this is another one that I have knit twice, and I started in 2023. So yeah, recurring theme there. So this is the sweater number 18, I think, by My Favourite Things Knitwear. And I've made this before in a different yarn. I really love the pattern. I think sometimes her jumpers are too oversized for my taste anyway. So when I made it the first time round, I sized down, but I really like the way that it fits. Like, it's roomy, but it's not too oversized. I have made some before which have just been like, I can't wear this. I won't be able to wear it under a coat. It's not very practical. They can be too heavy as well. I don't like things being too heavy. So I really like this pattern. And the yarn that I'm using, it's Woolyknit again. This is their Saddleworth, Warth Mill Saddleworth. And I think this colour was called Aran Nepp. So it's basically just the kind of cream off-white or like natural shade, but it's got a bit of tweed in it, which is really pretty. And I'm holding it together with Drops Tynn Silk Mohair in the shade Off-White. So I'm on the body now, like I've joined the body in the round. Yeah, I don't know why I haven't worked on this one more this year. I think there's always just been more interesting projects to work on, or other things that I've wanted to do, because, you know, I don't have any issues with it. Maybe again, it's because I started knitting. This was the first Sycamore sweater that I made. So when I said I didn't really like how it looked in the yarn, yeah, I ripped it back. So I'd made like the body and the neck and maybe a bit of a sleeve. And I don't know, it just wasn't working for me. Like, I didn't like how it looked in that particular yarn. I thought the yarn would look better in something with more texture. So that's why I chose this pattern. And because I'd made it already, I knew that it was one that I enjoyed making. I knew that it was one that I enjoyed wearing as well. Yeah, that's why I chose this one. So this pattern, it's just knits and purls, and you're just kind of alternating, either doing knit rows, purl rows, or you're doing like 1 by 1 rib. So it's quite easy to do. It's a lot easier than, like, if you're a beginner, like, it's a lot easier than it looks. And it's really fun as well because, you know, having every row be more or less different, it kind of keeps me more interested as well than just knitting in stocking stitch. So this is one that I would like to finish soon, but, you know, I'm not quite halfway through, maybe halfway through the body, and then I'll have the sleeves to do. So yeah, that's another one that hopefully I can finish this year. I've got a lot of projects to be getting on with this year. I don't really need to make knitting plans for 2025 because if I just finish all my works in progress, that will take me long enough, surely. So this is the yarn, and yeah, it's called Aran Nepp. And I don't know if this is going to show you it the wrong way around, but it says Warth Mill Yarns Saddleworth, and it's by Woolyknit. When I bought it, it was like super cheap, and I think they had a sale on as well. But I think they have put the prices up recently, but it's still like quite good value for what it is. I think I got 5 of these these are 100-gram balls, and there's 204 meters in them, and I think it was like £16 or something in the sale, maybe even less than that. I can't remember. It was like really good value. Because I haven't finished it yet, I can't see how well it's going to wear. But the wool itself, it's very sheepy, it's very like rustic feeling. So if you are sensitive to wool, I wouldn't recommend it. I will see how sensitive to it I am with the mohair as well. I don't know, we'll see. Okay, another one that I started, and I started this towards the end of last year. So Rebecca from Moving Stitches, she's got a YouTube channel on here as well, and she hosted the Fall Feels Knit Along, and the idea was you just knit something autumnal. So I started knitting this cardigan. I will show you it. This is how far I've gotten. So I've just kind of split the body and the sleeves, and I'll show you the back panel because it'll be a bit more detailed. So this cardigan, I don't know where to start with this one really. I'll just start with the yarn quickly. I'm using Wool in the Gang Feel Good yarn, which is like a fluffy alpaca blow yarn. It's got this kind of mesh inner tube that the alpaca fibres are blown through. So there's quite a few yarns like this. Drops Air is another one, or Sandnes Garn Cause. There's lots of them. I don't really shop at Wool in the Gang because they don't really have a lot of yarns that I like. They tend to be kind of super chunky, which is just, I don't really enjoy knitting with it or wearing it. I had a gift card to use, so I got some of the Feeling Good yarn because that's kind of one of their lighter weight ones, and it is really soft and fluffy. I don't know how it will kind of wear. And the pattern that I'm using, well, I'm kind of not really using a pattern. So I saw the Cornelia cardigan by Sandnes Garn, and I really wanted to knit it because it's a mixture of cables and lace, which I thought looked really, really cool. Basically, I have this cardigan that I bought, I didn't knit it, and it combines cables and lace. It just works really well. I really like it. So I wanted to find a pattern that combined cables and lace, so I could kind of not recreate that one, but just make something similar. But the thing with Sandnes Garn is, in general, like, they don't sell PDFs of their patterns. You have to buy the pattern booklet. And I think it may vary. They may have some like online downloads, but most of the time you have to get the booklet. Sometimes you can get the patterns individually, but you still have to buy the physical copy. And they can be really difficult to get a hold of because there aren't that many shops that stock it in the UK. And quite often you need to buy a certain amount of Sandnes Garn yarn as well if you're buying a pattern booklet. I'm not really sure why that is. It might just be like expensive for the shops to get them in, so they have to balance it with some yarn, or maybe it's like a deal that they have with Sandnes Garn. I don't know why it is, but it's a thing that a lot of shops do. And yeah, I couldn't find it in stock in any shops as well. So I tried to just kind of recreate it based on, just work it out for myself. And I definitely I've changed some things. Like I think in their version, the back panel was slightly different, but I didn't really like how it looked. I just repeated the lace panel that's used on the front, and I think theirs has a set-in shoulder as well. So I tried to kind of basically do the same construction as the Abbey sweater, where I cast on stitches for the back and then increased and knit a bit of the back yoke, and then picked up stitches for the sleeves, and then did like raglan increases. But I don't really know how well this is going to fit. It was a bit of an experiment, and I've split, as I said, I've split it for the sleeves now, but I'm not convinced that I've done enough rows here. It might be too tight, so I might go back and just like add a few more rows. Now that I get it out again, I do really like it, and I really love this colour. It is very autumnal, this kind of orangish red. Yeah, it's a really beautiful colour, and with this yarn as well, as I said before, it's got like this nylon inner like mesh tube that the alpaca fibers are blown through. And the inner tube, I think it's black. It's really dark anyway. And it kind of works it works kind of nicely. You can't really see it when it's knit up, but I guess it just gives the colour a bit more depth and a bit more texture than if it was just the same colour all over. So I do like the yarn, and I kind of like how it's looking, but I'm not sure if it's gonna, I don't know if it's gonna work. I don't know if it's gonna fit, or if I should just rip it back and just knit something completely different. I was thinking this yarn would work really well for like a colour work project as well. I've got some more of the same yarn in a colour that would work well with it, like a sort of light pink. So if I see a pattern that has like a colour work yoke maybe, I think it would work really well for that. So I need to make a decision there. Am I going to rip it back, or will I just keep going and hope for the best? Okay, I think I'm nearly done with my works in progress. I'll just talk about this one quickly. This is like one sock that I made. I think I actually made it, it might not have been last year, it might have been the year before. And I just put it on with my sock blocker just to show it a bit better. I got this yarn. This is the Crazy Zauber Ball by Schoppelwolle. This is what it looks like. Again, I've lost the tag. I don't know what this colour is called, but it's kind of like greens and pinks and purples. I got this from a little wool shop in Leeds called Bellwether Yarns. She has some of her own hand-dyed wool, and she also stocks some other ranges, and this was one of them that I got there. She actually had this sock hung up on the wall as a sample, so she'd done a similar thing where she'd done stripes using the Zauber ball and just like a plain like off-white colour, and in the top stripe she'd done some little hearts, which I thought was so cute. So I just tried to do the same thing basically, but I've only made one. I had serious second sock syndrome with this, where I got the yarn and I just wanted to cast it on immediately. I think I cast it on the way home, and I knit the first sock really quickly, and then I just never cast on the second one. And I've knit loads of socks since, but I just haven't gone back to do this one. I think I've found since then that I need to cast on the second sock immediately. So as soon as I finish like the toe of the first one, just immediately cast on the second one, and then I'm more likely to actually finish it. Otherwise I just never get around to it. I did a afterthought heel for this one. You can't really see it very well because it's kind of slipping down my sock blocker. Now I don't think I did the afterthought heel properly. I didn't follow a pattern, I just kind of made it up. And I don't know why I decided to do an afterthought heel. It was just something I've never tried before, but I didn't look up how to do it properly. I just kind of guessed how to do it. So I think what you're supposed to do is use like a spare strand of yarn to knit with, and then you later go back and like pick up the stitches. I did something completely different. I don't know why I didn't just like look up how to do it properly, but I was like, oh no, I can figure this out. So I cast off stitches here, and I then cast on new stitches. So basically I just made like a heelless sock, and then when I finished it I went back and picked up stitches around the heel edge for the heel. And to be fair, it works. Like, I got the thing that I wanted. I think what I did was probably more complicated than what you're supposed to do. I have this bad habit sometimes of knitting where when I come across like a new technique, rather than just like look up how to do it properly, I just kind of guess what I'm supposed to do and try to figure it out for myself. Like, sometimes it works. As long as you get the effect that you want, that's fine. But I guess my way might be more complicated. There might be a much easier way to achieve that effect, and I'm just making it more complicated for myself. I think actually when I first learned to knit when I was a kid, I never really learned how to purl. I just guessed. So I knew how to do knit stitches, and I knew that a purl was like a backwards stitch. So I just kind of said, oh, well, you probably just do this. So I don't know if I'm purling properly to this day. I get the effect that I want, so I'm not really bothered, but I think I am probably purling properly now, but yeah, I don't know. I just never looked, I never found out how to do it properly. I just made it up. Okay, so final work in progress now. This is one that I've been working on for ages. I cast it on in, I think, spring 2023, so almost 2 years ago. And I wanted to finish it for like that summer because it's a summer top, and I didn't. And I've been working on it this year, just every now and then. It's quite a good one to have like when I go on a long journey because it's a small project and it's quite compact. I'll show you it first. This one is the Cumulus Tea, I think it is, by PetiteKnit. And yeah, it's a bit scrunched up. Sorry. Oops. Okay, so this is how far I've got with it. I've done the yoke, I've put the sleeve stitches on hold, cast on, well, join the body in the round. And yeah, I'm about this far into the body. And yeah, the reason that I haven't finished this one is just because it's so boring to knit. Like, it's definitely a product knit rather than a process knit. I get so bored knitting stocking stitch, and because this is on 3mm needles, it just takes forever. But it's a good one to have, like, if I always take it with me if I'm going for like a long car journey or something, or like I just want something mindless to knit in front of the TV, because it is just knitting and knitting and knitting for thousands of stitches. I'm using Knitting for Olive Pure Silk, and I think this is the shade Cream. I've got a fill ball here actually, so yeah, Cream. And I think this is the one that the original sample was made in as well. I think for something like this, I wanted to choose just a colour that I knew I would wear and I knew would go with everything, because it is such a long knit. It takes forever. And I didn't want to put all that work in and then actually decide I didn't like the colour or find that it wouldn't like match any of my clothes. Whereas I knew that if I just did it in like a plain white t-shirt, like I'm definitely going to wear that. So yeah, this is just one that, like, it's just ongoing. I need to finish it eventually. I really would like to have it finished for this summer so I could wear it this summer. So that's something to work towards. So I said at the beginning of the video that I was going to show my works in progress and then also the things that I wanted to knit and didn't. So at the end of last year, end of 2023, beginning of 2024, sometime around then, I shared on my Instagram stories a picture, I'll try and show it now, of, it wasn't like knitting plans for the new year exactly, it was just kind of things that I would like to knit, so ideas. And of those, I've made 2 of them. I made the Bressie sweater by Marie Wallin. I showed that in my last video. And as I mentioned before, I made this sweater number 25, and then I unravelled it and started again. But kind of, yeah, I made both of those. I do still really want to make the other 4. So we've also got the Haraboji cardigan by Eggio Knit. And that is one that it might be like my next big cast on, I'm not sure. Once I've finished these works in progress, hopefully. I will try to finish those first, but I probably won't. Let's be honest. I know that with that one, I do want to modify it again a bit, because it's another one that's like really oversized. And I think if I knit it in the recommended yarn and without any modifications, it's going to be too heavy. And I think it looks like the sleeves are really big and wide as well. And I really love the pattern. I think it's so beautiful. But I know that it's not one that I would enjoy wearing. So if I can somehow modify it, maybe using like a lighter weight yarn and going down a needle size perhaps. But I think it's going to be a more difficult one to modify because of the construction. So it's knit sleeve to sleeve. It's a sideways construction, which I've never done before. But I'm guessing you just like knit the first sleeve, cast on stitches for the body, and then knit the front panel. Yeah, I guess you'll have to knit it all together for the knit a bit of like the shoulder up until where you start shaping the neckline, and then knit the front panel, leave those stitches on hold, knit the back panel up until where the neckline joins the shoulder, and then knit, I don't know, it's something like that anyway. So it's going to be a bit more complicated to try and modify, because when you cast on the stitches for the body, you need to know exactly how long it's going to be. So it's not one that you can just like knit until you get to the length you want. You need to kind of have that worked out. So therefore, if I'm changing the gauge, I need to basically do all the maths to figure out how long it needs to be here, how wide the sleeves are going to be. It's going to be there's going to be a lot of numbers to figure out before I start. So it is something I'd really like to do though, because I think the pattern is so cool. I haven't got the yarn for it or anything. I've not really decided. I'm thinking something like Filcolana Tilia, which is, it's sometimes classed as a DK. Sometimes it's classed as a 4-ply. It's sort of in between, more of a sport weight. It's got 175 meters per 50 grams. So yeah, it's kind of a sport weight. So I think something like that could work. That's my plan. The recommended yarn is Feeble by Lillehammer Garn, and that's quite like a heavy DK. It's 50 grams is 100 meters, but it's quite like fluffy. It's quite a thick DK, so it fluffs up a lot, and it uses a lot of yarn as well. So I think it's going to be really heavy as well as oversized. So another one that I really want to knit still is the stripy one. This, I think, is the sweater number 12 by My Favorite Things Knitwear. It's basically like a raglan knit in 1x1 rib with stripes, and it looks like it's be the type of thing that I would just wear a lot. I said before that I need to knit more stripes because I find them so easy to wear and I enjoy wearing them. So that's one that I really want to make soon. Again, I've not really decided what yarn I'm going to use for it, but I don't think I want to use mohair. I think I'd like to do a mohair free version. So either just using like one double knit yarn, as opposed to the recommended yarn for it is like the Knitting for Olive Merino and Soft Silk Mohair. But I think if I just replace it with a double knit or like a light double knit, that could work. There's also the Pressed Flower Socks by Savory Knits. Again, that's one that I do still want to knit. I've just not found the right yarn for it yet. I think it would be nice to do like a slightly variegated colour paired with a solid colour. I have one that could work. I have this yarn already, and I think that would be really nice for the flowers, but I need to find like a good colour to go with it, because it's kind of it's sort of like these mid-toned pinks and reds. Whatever colour I pair with it, I think either needs to be much darker or like really pale, really light. So yeah, I've not really decided what colour I want to go with it. I think it'll either be like a navy or maybe just like an off-white would look quite nice. And the last one is the Scout Shawl by Florence Sperling. I do still really want to make it at some point, but I don't think it's one that I'm going to be making anytime soon. Mainly because like at the end of last year, I finished a really big colourwork scarf, so I just don't really feel the need to knit another one so soon after. But I might do just the Scout scarf. She's got two patterns. One is for like a smaller scarf, the other one is for like the big shawl. I think if I make it, it'll probably end up being the scarf rather than the shawl. But it's such a cool pattern, and I think it uses a mix of intarsia and Farrell knitting, and I'm not really sure how it's constructed. I think it's knit flat, but I'm not sure on that one. I don't have the pattern yet, so I've not had a look at it. That will be interesting. I've never done like stranded colour work knit flat before. I've always done it in the round, so I might really like it. Like some people really love it. I don't know. At least because it's a scarf, it doesn't need to fit it. So it's not like knitting a jumper where you need it to fit, and the gauge and tension is really important for a scarf. you can kind of get away with a bit more. So yeah, I do still want to knit that one. So yeah, that's, I think in terms of like works in progress, I definitely have a lot to be getting on with. There are a lot of other things that I would like to knit as well, like other patterns that have been released this past year or ones from earlier, which I've also like seen and think, yeah, I want to make that soon. I think for now, I just want to focus on finishing my works in progress. I do also have some ideas for patterns that I want to make. In the last episode, I showed my Giverny socks, which was a sock pattern that I put out at the end of last year. And I want to make a cardigan version of it. So using the same or like a similar lace pattern, but just applied to a cardigan. And I've kind of got that worked out in my head. I think I know how it's going to be constructed. I know what gauge I want. I just need to get the yarn and I need to make it. I've got some more like sock patterns as well that I want to release. There was a sock that I made for my partner for his Christmas present, and it's got like the Argyle like diamond print on it. I'm going to make that one into a pattern. I just need to write it up. I want to make a second sample for myself. The first sample that I made for my partner, it's just got the Argyle pattern. It's just around the cuff, but I want to include instructions for it to be like an all over colourwork pattern as well, so you have the options of doing both, because it's slightly different when it comes to the heel. You have to increase stitches for the colourwork section and then decrease for just the plain stocking stitch, so it will be slightly different when it comes to doing the heel. You need to decrease some stitches and then increase again after the heel if you're doing all over colourwork. I did a short row heel for it and I used this shadow wrap technique, which I'd never done before. I did look that one up this time. I didn't just guess. So, and I really liked it. It made a really neat heel. I don't usually like doing a short row heel because I think it looks really like gappy, and you get like you can sometimes get little holes where the short row turns are. And sometimes they don't fit as well either. This one does seem to fit well, so I'm pleased about that. As I say, I need to write the pattern. I've got the charts all figured out and I've got like the sizes figured out. There'll be 3 sizes and I just need to start making the all over colourwork version. So that's the next thing I want to work on once I've finished off the green jumper. Cast that one off. I'm going to write up the pattern for those socks and try and finish some of my works in progress and cast on a Giverny cardigan. Those are my knitting plans for the next couple of months anyway. I should have enough to keep me going, definitely. So finally, the last thing that I want to quickly talk about. So I thought it would be fun to set myself some goals. Nothing too major. I'm not going to be too ambitious. As I said, I've got plenty to get on with, but I wanted to try doing 3 new things this year. So a new designer, a new technique in knitting, and a new yarn that I haven't tried before. The designer that I would like to try one of their patterns is Rose Knitwear. That's Rose ROWS, not like the flower. And she's got some really cool patterns. I've been admiring her patterns for quite a while now and I've not made one yet. The one in particular that I really want to make is the Sol top, which is a summer top. It's like a strappy vest thing. It's made using double knit yarn. I have the yarn that I want to use already. It is this. It's Noro Kakagori. I've got 1 skein and I think it's like 200 grams. There should, in theory, be enough here to make the top. I'm hoping so, because they only come in these like big, massive, I think 200 gram skeins, and they are quite expensive. So if you need to get more, if you just have like a little bit left over, you've got to buy the whole thing again, which I don't want to have to do. Hopefully I could get it out of one of these. So yeah, that's the designer that I want to try. The technique that I would like to try, I'd really like to try knitting with beads. I've seen people do it before. I think it looks really cool. I don't know exactly what pattern I'm going to use for it, but it's just something that I would like to try. I'm thinking again, maybe just like a simple vest top, just start quite small and I don't know how complicated it is. It looks like it would be really complicated. It looks like it would take ages to like put all those beads on. I think there's like different methods of doing it. So that's something that I think will be fun to try. And finally, the new yarn that I want to try is Cardiff Cashmere Classic. I've been wanting to make something in cashmere for so long. I think I might just start with something small like a hat or like a pair of gloves, because I wouldn't need so much. I could maybe get away with like 2 skeins. I would eventually like to make a cardigan with it, but that is going to be really expensive, so that'll be something I'll need to save up for. But yeah, I keep hearing great things about the yarn. Everyone who uses it seems to really love it, and I would like to try it too. So those are my 3 new things that I want to try this year. Let me know if you've got any new patterns or new designers, new techniques that you would really like to try. Yeah, I think that's it from me today. I've kind of run out of time anyway. So thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. And yeah, as I said, let me know, what are your knitting goals for 2025? Are you going to try and finish off your works in progress, or are you like me where you say that every single year and you never do it? Yeah, let me know. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you soon. Bye bye.